It's going good. How
Yeah,
are
I
you?
appreciate. I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, definitely, bro. Like I saw your art, and I'm making sure my Wi-Fi's off so that everything's gonna go smooth and everything.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I saw your art. I don't know how I found you, but I came across your page when I was just like looking through Instagram and stuff, and I was like, dude, this would be a dope dude to talk to. So I was like, let's
Hell
just,
yeah. I can talk. That's for sure.
yeah.
Here, I'm gonna write. Let me set you up a little higher. All right, cool.
All right, dope. So yeah, so just to start it off, I mean, good to meet you. Obviously, it's
Yeah, yeah, you as well, man.
yeah.
I'm glad you found me. Social media is a great thing.
Yeah. So I can see your beautiful art behind you. Let's just go straight into it.
All right.
Have you always been an artist, and everything like that? Like, have you always like had a passion for art? How'd you get
Oh,
into
yeah.
it and everything, you know?
Yeah, I mean, mainly, I grew up as an only child, so I think a lot of my pastime, I'd sit in my room and draw. I used to get in trouble for drawing in class, and so it was one of those things. It was kind of like a crutch when I was a kid. It was something that I always kind of did, regardless if I was supposed to be studying or if I was just at home bored. I was always doodling, drawing something. But it kind of like it's evolved. It kind of taught me um, persistence and kind of how to learn stuff on my own without having a teacher to teach me. So it was fun. It was a fun learning process. Times I wanted to pull my hair
Yeah,
out, of course.
yeah.
Still is.
I'm fascinated by art and artists and painters and everything like that because so I make music. That's how I kind of started getting
Yeah.
into like using my voice and things like that. I started making music when I was in high school with my friend Jake.
Nice.
And so I've always like had a passion for things that are creative and everything, and talking to people who are creative and everything. And so lately I've been trying to talk to people who. So, a person who did my cover art, his name's Oliver. I go to school with him up in
Yeah.
Oregon, and it's cool to like pick the brains of artists because, like, not that they can like see into a different realm than other people, but like I talked to this guy Advice for Artists who is he's basically just a writer, and he was
Yeah.
basically talking about like people like Scorsese and John Lennon and people who are like really creative and how like they can like really tap into something that most normal people cannot. Do you think that? So when you're painting something, like what is going through your mind, you know?
There's a lot of psychology in artwork, and a lot of stuff you can learn about yourself, and it affects everyone. I mean, everybody's creative in their own certain way, and a lot of people are fortunate enough to find their creative spark. Some are kind of unlucky; they go through life not really knowing. But I think everybody has a creativeness to them, and whenever you exercise it, I think that you can tap into these other little realms, these things that like the documentary The Secret, where you put your mind to it, you really manifest stuff. I think that these artists maybe have tapped into these things that a normal person would find magical or something, something that they couldn't normally do. I mean, look at H.R. Geiger. They did a documentary on him, and he had a kind of a traumatizing part of his life that he brought out a lot of his artwork, and his friends were like, we don't believe in any of all this stuff, but with him, he's definitely channeling something that they had never. I mean, his work's unbelievable. I mean, they made the Alien movies from his work. It's pretty far out there. But I think that whatever you're tapping into, if you're really into it and you're really wanting to manifest it, then you can try your best to bring it out. And I think it goes with any art form,
Your art is super, and I say this in a very positive way, trippy. So like when I I'm like going through I was like going through your page when I first DM'd you, and then I found you again when we started to talk about it again. And then yesterday even, I was looking at it and I was like, this is just, it's like really tripping. It's really like cool because it's like, it like takes you into these weird places. Like I love art that's like that. So like, I don't know if you're a fan of the show Rick and Morty, are you?
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes. I haven't delved too
Yeah.
far into it. But yeah, no, I appreciate the show and what it's
Yeah.
all about.
I just love like trippy things like that. So your art
Mhm.
really is really dope. Could you tell me just a little bit about where your inspiration comes from, or is it like different on each piece, or where do you get that like really like drive from to create one piece of art?
Um, I've got like a short answer and I got a long answer.
We got time,
Uh,
man. You can give me
all
both.
right, all right. So, growing up, I was always really into ancient cultures, Egyptian culture, Mayan, Aztec, ancient Chinese. Like, I think it's fun for my mom. She was really into that kind of stuff. And growing up, kind of researching that, like on my own, maybe learning stuff in history class, I guess. But, I really liked mythology. Grew up watching Xena, Hercules, stuff like that in the 90s. So I was really into it. And it obviously came out in my artwork. And as I got older, I obviously started, I was a teenager in my early 20s. I was experimenting with drugs and certain things like that. And I was already interested through certain, research classes of like Edgar Allan Poe, Coleridge. They all had like laudanum addictions. Since they were children, it was like a medicine back then. But you take too much, it's going to cause somewhat of a psychoactive effect to it. And a lot of it would come out in their art, in their work, their writings, or whatever art. And look at Picasso, early 20s, 30s, and 40s. It wasn't a drug place then. You don't think of drug use being until the 60s, but there was a lot of chemicals that were around, but also like natural things, mushrooms, which have been taken since Homo sapiens been walking this planet. So yeah, I got into that. I was interested, and I had my own experiences, and a lot of it came out in my work. And it was something that it was not, of course, I had my times where I was like, I just want to go have fun. But there was a lot of times I was sprawled out on my floor, pupils dilated, and trying to draw because I was experimenting at a young age, kind of scientifically, amateur-wise, I guess, trying to see what happens in my artwork because I'd studied it with other artists. And now it's really come out. I try to depict a lot of the stuff that I had seen visual-wise, geometric patterns, a lot of these crazy entities that you might come across. And it kind of fell into that visionary art scene. Not that I was trying to. And I think the visionary art kind of recently just kind of spawned. It's kind of like, what do you call it? I mean, it's psychedelic art. Psychedelic art, you think more of the 60s. But you have like actual art forms like abstract and contemporary art. And I think visionary art kind of fell into a actual form and got kind of popular. And you think about art, since the beginning of time, humans always depicted something that is around them in nature. You have still lifes, you have portraits, you have animals, you have abstract things that are around you, sailboats, trees, but it's always been something that you've seen here in nature or around you. And then the visionary art kind of got into a part of the brain where that stuff doesn't exist in real life. Maybe morphed buildings or rock formations with faces in them. That doesn't exist, maybe in fairy tales, But that whole stem, I think, comes from ancient use of psychedelics. Fairies, trolls, Nordic gods. I mean, these Christmas is based on the Fly Garrett's mushroom. But a lot of people don't know this, but you go far, far, far back, you can find the root of these stories. And I think that overall is my conquest. It's the kind of the weirder the story is, I guarantee you the root of the story is just as weird. We've depressed it. We don't talk about taking psychedelic mushrooms or eating anything like that as a society. But ancient times, our brains were synapsing like crazy.
Yeah.
Like spark here, spark there, just experience something. And I give I give this thing of like, I ask people, do you believe in ghosts? Most people are like, no. But would you believe one if you saw it? They're probably like, yeah. Well, think about 30,000 years ago when Homo sapiens walking around, they eat a mushroom. They've never had this experience before, and they literally saw this with their own two eyes. That's going to be important to that person, and that person is going to try to tell somehow, some way, what his experience was. And boom, here comes belief systems, religions, like all this thing spawns from these personal experiences people have. But you don't really talk about that stuff. Scientists probably like to talk about it, but I'm from Georgia. You can't talk about that stuff down there. You are a devil worshiper. And Jesus Christ, not. I'm just trying to think scientifically here about a lot of this stuff that a lot of people want to make up a story about, I guess. Not that any of that's not true, but I have no idea.
So I would call myself religious. I wouldn't say I'm like, normal, like I used to go to church, but like I don't anymore, but I would call myself a Christian. Like I value those things. But like, I always think like, what if what if God or the universe, who I think is the higher power, put psychedelic mushrooms and marijuana and things like that are like synthetic or not synthetic,
natural.
Organic, natural. What if he put those on the earth for us to tap into some of the spiritual realms?
Yeah, I'm very, I love all religions. I have researched so many different backgrounds, religions, and belief systems that, there's all that one core thing that there's a higher power. There might be some that have multiple, but I think a lot of those multiple even have another higher power that's above them. You have the Greek gods, but then you have the Titans. Titans were the parents of the Greek gods. So there's always one above. And, I love to be open-minded about a lot of this stuff. And I agree with what you're saying. I believe that when it comes to science and our brain's powerful. We have certain receptors in our brain that are specifically for certain psychedelic plants and fungi that are on this planet. It's like a lock in your brain that'll never get unlocked until you take that key, which is the mushroom, and eat it, and it unlocks that part of the brain. So then, therefore, you had this experience. Therefore, you're kind of, I like to say, smarter than the average person that has not had this experience. You just seen something that not a lot of people want to see, I guess, maybe. Some people are scared of that stuff, which is understandable. I think that a lot of it is here. I think that it is meant to help us ease at loss of family members, not be so scared of death. A lot of these things that I was terrified as a child, I am not so horrified by anymore. I feel like there is much more to happen after this, and not losing a loved one like a parent or something like that. It's scary to think that you might not ever see that person again or have that. But in the overall scheme of things, I don't see how that's possible. I mean, you've got to be in contact again at some point, whether it's in the afterlife or whatever you believe in, So, yeah, I think a lot of these things are here for us to integrate with nature. I mean, we're from this earth. These things are not, there's a lot of bad things on this planet that science has researched, but a lot of it has its beneficial effects. I just think we need to understand how to use a lot of it. Mm-hmm. I think we've kind of strayed away from a lot of it as well. Going into pharmaceuticals and, I know that whole pyramid. I get it. But I also think that there's a lot of things out here that grow in the ground that will do just as fine. So hopefully in the future we'll understand and kind of like be able to mix the two. But right now we're not doing that very well.
No. Well, I will say this though: Oregon just decriminalized drugs, and they are testing psilocybin on mental health patients, which is very cool. It's a step.
Right. Where I'm from in Georgia, I have a lot of friends that still live there, and they were kind of distraught about that whole thing. And, from that point of view down there, they don't understand it. They're thinking, oh, we can go up here and smoke crack and do all these things, and we're not going to get in trouble. It's not about doing it. It's about being able to research this stuff, to be able to help people. But they don't see that part. And, I think that happening is amazing. MAPS doing their thing, like playing with these, like MDMA. MDMA was synthesized the year the Titanic sank, 1912. It's old. It's been used for 100 years, but it's just now illegal. But I think we're trying to bring it back. They used it in the 80s, and it was I can see where it was a beneficial thing. But a lot of this stuff's been around for a while. I think that it could be experimented a little bit more and tested instead of it being suppressed like it has, especially pot. I live in Denver. It's great. It's nice to be able to smoke some weed and not feel paranoid about doing it. So I'd rather do that than take some kind of pill, you know? So.
You know, I think that for things that are synthetic, synthetic, like pills and things like that, things that are created in a lab, that they are way worse than anything that could be not created, anything that's created naturally. So like pot, mushrooms, even like ayahuasca to some extent is like natural. Like it's from two plants that they created and put it into a brew, which is fascinating to me.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You got millions of different species of plants right down there in the jungle, right? People, I mean, we're discovering new things every day down there. And you have a shaman who's like, I can take this root and this vine and mix it together, and then I'll make you like question your reality. How did you figure these two plants out of all of this? That's amazing. I've heard stories, but there's no telling. That's that ancient knowledge that we lost, that I think a lot of us, a lot of our ancient ancestors probably had from living off the land. But
definitely,
pagans with the witch hunts, all that stuff. You play with nature, like, no, we don't like that. Like, so now you got the Western cultures that are here, and we're like, wow, like ayahuasca, peyote, like these things that these natives have been taking for so long. Makes you question a lot.
Yeah.
Really interesting. But go ahead.
I think the problem comes from the fact that a lot of people think we are smarter nowadays than they were in the past.
Yeah, I think there was a misconception about, I've done a lot of research myself. You have Altamira, Spain, which is a cave system. The cave system connects into France, and they found both. Well, now, up until about a week ago, it was the oldest thing we've ever uncovered by Homo sapien, and that's all the cave drawings of the animals. We've all seen them, at some point in time. Those are 30,000 years old. Picasso went and looked at those and literally said, we've learned nothing as a species. Like, they can draw just as good as I can draw. But the biggest question was like, where did they get the idea to draw? And that thing was they, to prove that, where did you get the idea to draw? If you've never seen a 2D depiction of a 3D object, where did you get the idea to do that? Your brain hasn't functioned enough to know how to do that. They brought in this devout Muslim into a gallery. This is an awesome story. And the Muslim religion, you don't have any depiction of a living thing. They've never seen a picture of another human, a photograph, a painting, a drawing. Never seen anything like that. And they brought him into a museum with a bunch of paintings. They were like, identify this painting. And he like looked at it, and couldn't walk around, and he looked at him like, how are you to ask me what this is when I can't walk around it and look at it? They're like, so you can't see what's on this painting. It was a painting of a horse. He'd seen a horse before, but he'd never seen a painting of a horse. So his brain had scribbled. It was like mush. He couldn't form it in his head. He couldn't see it. So they were wondering, how did they figure out how to draw these animals? And it went to altered states of consciousness. They were hunter-gatherers, probably ate a mushroom and then tried to draw there with charcoal. They were hallucinating. And then that advanced to being able to draw proportionately correct animals 30,000 years ago. I can't even draw an animal now. I can paint humans, but I can't paint an animal. That's hard. So it's pretty fascinating, the misconception that we have about ancient cultures. And we've advanced. We're definitely smart. I think that they were advancing with nature. We're advancing with technology. It's part of our evolution. I think it was bound to happen. You know, we're smart. We're going to do something that's going to make things easier for us. I think we've lived hunting and farming and doing all that stuff for thousands of years. Probably got tired of it. Now we're like, well, let's have something do it for us. We invented machinery. I mean, it's bound to happen. We're smart. We're going to do it eventually. But it's interesting about what's going to happen in the future. I'm ready for hoverboards. They've been promising that. They've been promising us that for years. So,
back to ancient humans. I think what fascinates me the most about them is the fact that they, like how fast we evolved as a species. Like, so if you really think about it, like, and you look at another species, you're thinking, okay, maybe dolphins are like conscious or on the level of us, octopus, things that are in the ocean that we don't understand, like you can't explain. But then you like look at us and you're like, we can like talk with cell phones and we're talking through Zoom. We create microphones, we create art, and not that like elephants can't paint and things like that. And one of the coolest things I heard about elephants on one of my podcasts was they ferment their fruit, they bury their fruit, come back when it's like turns into alcohol, and they get drunk off of it.
Yeah, it's animals are interesting when it comes to altered states of consciousness.
We can get into that. Do you know any stories about animals like taking drugs?
Yeah, so we'll go back like to the Amazon about the shaman being able to find out these two, like the root and the vine that would fit together to make ayahuasca. Was a story was that they would watch the jaguar, and the jaguar would go bite a piece of the root and then go chew on the vine. And that's how because it was a god that, you know, before religion, I think that ancient Homo sapiens like worshiped animals, majestic creatures. A lot of them that they were drawing at the time in the caves or early on all had like horns or antlers. And then you think about the headdresses that they would wear as humans with horns and antlers and feathers. They were like very majestic creatures that they weren't eating these animals, which is a huge misconception that they thought they were drawing these animals to eat, like a good hunt. No, they weren't eating. They were worshiping these animals. So watching a lot of them, like going into the Christmas story, the reindeer, and Santa Claus in a red and white suit, big shaman with a beard, rides around on a sleigh with a bunch of reindeer who fly, has little elves that make presents all up in the North Pole. So you have like the Viking, the Nordic story. The Nordics got it from the Siberian. This is a pagan, old Siberian, then Russia, where these shamans would go to the edge of the forest in the tundra. No plants would really grow except for these huge, not the cypress trees we have here. These are like huge pine trees, like really large Christmas trees is what they looked like. And they took up a part of the terrain out there. And so these men would go out there hunting, you know, and they'd have a lot of little Amanita muscaria mushrooms, little red and whites, growing up under these trees. So like little presents under the tree. Well, they had watched the reindeer eat these mushrooms for the longest time, hundreds of years. They worshipped this reindeer. The reindeer was a part of their culture. They used it. It moved their sleds around. You know, they were one with this deer. And this deer would eat these mushrooms and get high off of it. It affects them too. But they learned that if they went and ate it, it would make them sick. So they started drinking the urine from the deer, because the deer had like two stomachs. It filtered it. But these are godly creatures to them. So they're drinking godly juice, I guess. And they would feel the effects from it. But I'm sure urine's not the best tasting thing, right? So they figured out after a while that if they would pick the mushroom, tie it up under the tree and let it dry while they were hunting in the forest, they come back, they grab the mushroom, go back to their huts, and they're snowed in. the only way to get into their hut is through the chimney spout, right? So they come in through the chimney spout, and they'd hang the mushrooms up around the chimney. And they would dry, and then they would eat them, and it wouldn't make them sick. And then they would have hallucinogenic properties and have these experiences, and these were shamans. And on the solstice, they would go pass them around because they'd all eat them on the winter solstice, which is December the 21st. So it stretches out. I mean, the Christmas story to us is very normal. It's common. But you break it down and really think about it, it's kind of weird. It's a little weird story.
Do you know how it connected with Christianity and Jesus' birth? Like that story, how it connects with Christianity?
Well, so in a lot of my research that I've done, you know, we have the biblical story of Jesus being born on December 25th. I was supposed to be born on December 25th, but I didn't want to come out, so I came out 3 days later. So this part of the year for me is like, I have my ups and downs. It's fun, but it's winter's depressing at times. And I didn't get to go home this year. I wasn't home for Christmas or anything like that. So, during that time, I think a lot of the stories would come from like pagan astrology, the sun. A lot of people worship the sun. I can really go into some stuff like, and it's not that any of it's, I think it's a lot of it's theoretical. It's by stories of, if the Bible story isn't real, what could have happened kind of thing, right? So you have the sun. In ancient times, they would draw it out as if it was sitting on a cross. The sun's in the middle. You have the 12 constellations around it, which could be the 12 followers of Christ. Sun performed miracles, blah, blah. There's a tons of stories like Mithra, Ra, I can't remember. There's a bunch of other stories that have similar stories to the Jesus story. And it all is based on this astrology of, on December the 21st, the sun rises, and this is the beginning of winter. Days are shorter, nights are longer, stuff like that. Nothing's growing. You can't plant anything, it's cold. People sit inside. And I'm thinking, let's put it 10,000, 20,000 years ago. Even Middle Ages, during those times. People are still living in huts, stone structures and stuff. They didn't have heat. They're walking on ground floors, dirt and stuff everywhere. You know, damn, dude, what were we talking about?
Hey, don't worry, it happens to me all the time. We were talking about basically the pagan stories.
Okay, with Christmas, yeah.
Yeah.
So they believed in a lot of astrology, and during those times, like Christianity was really building up at the time. But you had a lot of the pagans that still believed in their gods and how it all worked with nature. So on December 21st, it's a weird thing. The sun rises in the sky, and on December 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and I think into the 24th, but for 3 days, it rises and it sits on the horizon for 3 days, when the rest of the time it'd been moving down, right? Every day got shorter. Well, then on December 21st, it stopped. And after 3 days, it rose 1 degree. So it goes into the whole Jesus story of when Jesus died, he was risen after 3 days. It's sitting on the cross, which there was a constellation in the sky called the Crux, which looks like a cross. And in the atmosphere on the horizon, I believe the sun rises where that is. I'd have to go back and really think about that. But the story of Ra, an Egyptian, Amun-Ra, he was the sun god. Everybody worshiped the sun. I've even heard that Amen came from Amun-Ra. It's really interesting that a lot of these correlations, especially the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Bible, have a lot of similarities. So it makes you wonder, where's the stories coming from? Not saying I really love to believe that Jesus was a real person. There's nobody to say that he didn't. But that story got attached to him. He was probably he's probably a nature worker, making miracles from the ground with plants and stuff like that. We don't know. But we do know that he affected a lot of people. But each one of these demigods or whatever had amazing effect on the human culture at that time. So I don't know if these astrology stories that people saw with their own two eyes, you can see the sun move in the horizon every day. You can see the constellations change in the sky during the different seasons. So they saw this, and I think the smartest person out of the village would notice this, maybe record it somehow. And after a while, it's blossomed up to be this elaborate story that could be pinned on these people. And yeah, I don't know where, wouldn't even know where to begin with a lot of this stuff. It's just really interesting. There was a documentary, it was, what was it called? Zeitgeist. Did you ever see that? Ever heard of it? You can probably watch it on YouTube. It's really interesting. The first part's my favorite because it talks about Christianity and religion. The second part, and it's kind of, it's conspiracy theory documentary, but it's gotten a lot of praise for its research that it did. And it was really interesting. You can get back and like research it yourself and really look at this stuff. But the cool thing is like on the solstice, you can go outside and witness it. It's really, really cool. So these stories of Christmas being a time of year of, there's death upon us. Trees are dying, plants are dying, but when spring rises, which we know it's going to happen because of the solstice, like everything's reborn. And then they have the summer solstice in June to celebrate the coming of the fall, and then the winter. Before religions, I think they watched what was going on around them. And then these certain dates got pinned because of astrology.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Easter, and then you have Christmas. You have the solstices, and you have, what is the mid part? I can't remember. They celebrate about mid-year too, in between June and December. But yeah, it's cool. And it's really cool that there's a lot of New Age pagans that want to still kind of, I guess since we're in America, we're able to do that, practice what we want. But playing around and people running around naked, worshiping the sun. It's interesting. It's really interesting. I watched a thing last night about it, actually. So it kind of refreshed a lot of my memory on all that stuff.
So have you ever, this is entirely different now, I just thought about it when you were talking. Have you ever gone somewhere and seen your own art, or gone to someone's house and seen your art like hanging up or something? And like, if you have, how does that feel?
Oh, yes. So I've had a few times where I sold some stuff to some people and forgot that they were the one that bought it. And I'd go over to their house and see. Or I even have, I had these people that lived here in Denver, and I didn't realize they lived together, but one would buy some art, and then the other one would buy some art. They're like, hey, will you bring it over to my house? And I go over there, and there's like a lot of my work in here, and I didn't realize that they lived with the other person that was buying some art. But yeah, it's flattering. I get really flattered whenever I have sales in, like across the pond, Europe or Australia or South America and stuff. I've had a few sales over there, and I've never been outside of the United States. And it's really cool to think that I have stuff in Estonia or France and Australia, New Zealand. And I'm not there, but a form of me is, and people have seen it. Thank God for social media. When I was a kid, this was a scary job to try to pursue. an artist, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay your bills? Blah, 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 blah. We didn't have the internet. Like, my parents didn't grow up with anything like that. And they were the ones that were like, this, you know, you might want to be a lawyer, doctor. No. So luckily, you know, growing up in the age of technology, we're able to market in ways of not having to post in the newspaper or, you know, certain things like that. So that's really been a huge thing that's helped get me to where I am. I'm very, very grateful for all of that. So, and the younger crowd, you know, you would think that it'd be the older crowd able to buy stuff, which, you know, a few of them do, but they're not really into psychedelic art. They're into more traditional. But the younger crowd buying it left and right and supporting a lot of this visionary art scene that is out here right now that is literally inspired by the festival scene and being surrounded by a lot of the kids that are buying the artwork because they're experiencing and having these great times. And it's really cool to watch, and it's really cool to be a part of, and super grateful for all these kids that are out here. I have to give it to you. When I was in school, it's hard for me to even afford things, and like, you know, let me support you and buy some prints and stickers and stuff. So it's really awesome that they do that, and I try to get back as much as possible when I can. Like a print here or there extra, especially if they're going across the pond. You know, you'll get an extra one just because shipping's expensive. So
yeah, I always thought that. I always wondered like what it was like to see your own work and someone be fascinated by it. You know, the one thing about art that's just so interesting is the fact that it's something so different than any other form of like artistic like human presence.
Right.
You have music, which is still vocal. You have like anything like sports, which is kind of like a person, like you have to watch a sport. I mean, you can listen, but it's not really
right. Yeah, there's more senses to the sports too.
Yeah. But like art is like you can have your own experience through someone's art, and you can also like there's like different experiences you can have. You can have your own experience through someone's art, you can have the world's experience through someone's art, and you can have the artist's experience through their art. And so I think it's fascinating. Like, yeah, you can do that through music too, but it's different because they're saying what they mean, you know.
Right.
Art is very interpretive.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, maybe you don't have one because you've done so many paintings and things like that, but can you recall one of your favorite paintings and like what was going on during the painting, before, during, after, and what the painting was of and things like that, you know?
So I have a few, you know, when I'm painting, a lot of the times, I'll either get attached to it or I won't get attached to it. And there have been a few that I'm attached to, so I'm not in a hurry to sell it. And if I post it and it gets a lot of likes or comments, then I usually am not really even fast to sell it then. I like to hold on to the ones that are a little bit more sought after. But there was an interesting call because there have been times where I'll spend months on a painting. Like my heart, sweat, and tears go into it, you know, like it really means a lot to me. And then I'll have another painting, like in time spent on that, I'll have another painting going on and I'll work on it. And I might spend 2 or 3, 4 or 5 days on it, depending. And I can literally, and this has happened so many times, I'll take the painting that means a lot to me that I'm like, yeah, this is the one I'm really proud of. And then I'll have this one that I spent like a couple of days on that it means really nothing to me. It's just me painting, like getting something up. And I'll hang them up next to each other. And people will walk by the one that I'm like, yes, this is mine. They're like, that's cool. And then they'll look at the one that I did in a couple of days and they're like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is like this is my baby. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So I have a few of those too that people are like, it's not It's not my favorite, but I think that what it comes down to is there's certain things about the process that I was attracted to, that I liked, that a non-artist or a person that doesn't understand it is not going to see or understand. They're viewing the painting. I'm viewing a technique that I did in the painting that they're not going to know anything about. And that might be a reason that I'm super attracted to it, and like, I'm proud of it. I want to hold on to it, and other people don't really see it. And I scratch my head trying to figure out like why don't. But I think that has a lot to do with it when you really break it down. Mm-hmm. There was something about the process that I liked that maybe I wanted to hold on to, that I could look at later, kind of see what I did, because it's like a math equation. I mean, you can do it multiple different ways. There's different ways of going about painting or drawing or whatever, but you still want to get that same outcome. I mean, they're all going to be a little different, but in your head, you want to get that same outcome. But you got different ways of going about doing it. So getting that problem right, it can be hectic sometimes. So yeah, there's some that I love, some that I hate, but I think I keep a lot of them in my room.
Yeah. Well, this one behind you, could you like describe this one? This like really long one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a collab between my buddy Pharaoh One, Brian Simmons. He's a local artist out here in Denver as well. He's a street artist. He does a lot of mural work, but me and him have hit up some paintings. We got a mural downtown as well. But I do a lot of grayscale paintings, and he's very confident with his color. And so that was something great to like work with, because I can sit here being not very confident with my color schemes, and then watching him. So like our fusing together was great. We've done 4 or 5 pieces plus a mural. Plus he's a really cool guy. So like, we're into the same kind of stuff. He's into a lot of Egyptian, ancient culture stuff. So am I. So we put our mix on it. So he has a lot of this brightly color with these cats going on, and I've thrown in a lot of the background. And I do a lot of figure art. So I played with the face, did a little bit of the patterns in the headdress or the helmet. So it was a fun piece. We named it Colors of My Soul.
So where does the names for certain paintings come from? Does it come easy? Does it come hard? Where does it come from?
So I fixed that problem. I had a hard time always thinking of a cool name, or I mean, you can paint something and the title is very important for a lot of stuff. I mean, if you have an abstract piece that you really can't tell what it is, and you title it something, then that helps the viewer understand maybe what's going on with it, right? So I have a lot of pieces that it's up to your own interpretation, really. Anybody can really look at this and kind of get what they want out of it. But in my time of painting it, there might have been a song I was listening to or a band that I was really into. And trying to think of my own names, I'd have a hard time even remembering what I named that piece. I mean, a lot of times I'll write it on the back for the person who buys it, but I have to keep record, usually through like Instagram or something like that, because I'm going to title it, size it, and all that stuff in the photo when I post it. They can go back and like see what I titled it. But I have to name them after songs or lyrics so that I can remember. And a lot of the times that song or that band that I might be listening to at the time, which might have a song that I love or a lyric, is what I'm really into at that particular time. And maybe I'm listening to a song and I'm in the midst of painting this piece, and I'm like, that's it. That's the name. And it helps me remember it, because sometimes it's one of my favorite songs or a favorite lyric. So I fixed that problem, trying to figure out names. And it's cool. People are like, wow, it fits. I'm over here like, wow, that's cool. It fits perfectly. And I didn't even have to really think about it, So hopefully I don't get in trouble one day for doing that. But I don't think so.
I don't think he will. It's like a band's title, like
yeah, it's like
title. The cool thing about songs too is like a lot of the times they just take words they say and make it the title. You know, like, one of the songs, like if they say almost a bunch of times, they say the title is almost.
Almost, yeah. So it's like I think it's part of the creative process of an artist. You know, they don't want to like overthink it too much in any process of whatever art form you're doing. So any kind of like help or hint or something like that. I've had friends name my paintings for me. Like, that works perfectly. Now they have a connection to that painting. You know, they can say like, yeah, I named that painting for him. And I'm like, that's great for me because like I was having a hard time trying to figure out something. So yeah, names are cool. Music for me is I couldn't paint without music. So naming my stuff after songs is almost like an homage to the band or the song.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, music's universal language. And I like to think that music's my passion, but I can't really play anything. But my God, does it hit the chords in me, especially when I'm painting. So, yeah, I have to have it. It's a necessity for me.
So one thing about me is I'm colorblind, right? And so when I look at things, I see it in a different light than most people. And so my girl, for Christmas, she got me colorblind glasses.
Wow, that's awesome.
No, yeah, it was. I was like, she gave it to me. So her family did Christmas on the Tuesday before. I think Christmas was Friday.
Yeah.
So when they gave it to me, it was like the last present, and I was like, all right, so you guys won Christmas. How can I beat seeing color? You know. But that's one of the things that was awesome was like, we and my family were walking around my neighborhood looking at Christmas lights, and I had them on, and I was a little intoxicated, but. It was like hitting me so different. Like I was like staring at things and like seeing the difference in things for the first time. And I was like, wow, this is.
Was it a bit emotional? Like really.
The first time I put them on, it wasn't that emotional. Like I was still trying to figure out. My brain was kind of playing tricks on itself.
Right.
Figure it out. But when I was walking around looking at those Christmas lights, it was different because I'm red-green colorblind, and that's green is like a color of Christmas. Red's a color of Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's like everything was like really bright and vibrant. And
right.
So it was like hitting me in a different way, and I had to like take a moment back. But it was really cool. So
that's great. I'm
gonna have to stare at art with those glasses on.
Yeah. No, man, that's awesome that they did that. That's really that's a great gift.
You can't beat that.
No, not at all. That is a very, that's a thoughtful gift. You can't.
More than thoughtful. You really think about it, and you're like, what? Like that's like the thoughtful gift out of all thoughtful gifts,
Yeah. I mean, oh man, I can imagine. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, super happy for you for getting that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh shoot. Sorry. Is it the same on the screen?
Yeah. Everything's good.
Can you hear the phone call?
I said. Down at the bottom, it says Collin. It doesn't say anything. No, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, so I was, my girl was actually calling me. Weird timing. I'm going to tell her that I'm podcasting. I told her, but she must have blanked it. But, yeah, so back to what I was saying, like, about your paintings and everything. Is there one painting that you can remember the most, like the experience of painting it itself?
I remember quite a bit. A lot of the ones that are memorable for me are the ones when I'm live painting. You're interacting with a lot of people who are asking you about what you're painting at a particular time. But like personally, this goes back into the artist kind of head. So it's like it might not be amazing to others, but there was a painting I did. It was called Strange and Beautiful, and it was just a painting of a woman, like an interdimensional alien-looking woman, big headdress, and she's got a flower, and she's in a little creek bed, and she's playing with a hummingbird. And I did this painting in all of like a earth tone brown. With just a little bit of highlights and darks. But like I said, I was always not very comfortable with my color, like using certain color. I didn't take color theory or anything like that. So I'm trying to teach myself. So being able to pull out a whole painting in that brown tint and it looked good, and I was proud of it and happy. That's one of them that I was always pretty proud of. I have another piece that I did at Root Wire Festival back in 2016, and I'd get a little nervous when I'd go paint and not having anything on my canvas, like showing up with a blank canvas and trying to paint something in a 3 or 4 day span. Very intimidating. And I had to go to this festival. I flew, not actually didn't fly in, but I didn't take an already worked canvas. Sometimes I'll take a piece that's halfway done. So they have something to look at, and I don't have to feel intimidated by not having anything on there. So I came in with a blank canvas, and I started and finished a piece in a 4 day span, and super stoked. I loved it. It came out great, and I kept it. I just held on to it. A lot of people liked it. It was different for me. So it's kind of one of those, I can take as long as I want to think about what I'm painting in my studio. But when I have 4 days to paint something, it was probably should have been smart enough to come up with a concept before I got there. But I like to think kind of like on the spot. And that's what happened. And it was a 4 day, you better get it done painting. And I was happy with it. So I kept it. That was one of those paintings that I remember pretty distinctly about painting it and what was going on. It was cool.
So what is it like to be in the zone in the middle of a painting? Like in the middle of you painting something, what is it like to be in that zone? Because I know what it's like to be in the zone when I'm doing this and I'm like having a really good conversation, or if I'm playing football, or if I'm recording a song. But what is it like to be like, because it's such precision and such like you're doing it, through your body. Mm-hmm. So what is it like to be in the zone in a painting?
It's it's kind of like a free flow. It's like a flow state where you got it with everything. Like you said, you do it when you're painting, or when you're doing a podcast, or when you're making music, or when you're playing sports. It's, you're losing track of time. Time doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, 2 hours might have passed. It only felt like maybe 20 minutes went by. That's what I get into, and it's what can I like a martial arts kind of thing. It's very like, you're precise, you're in your head, you know what you're doing like you're balancing all this stuff. You're working your body, you know how to work your body. It's a lot of muscle memory when you're going in paintings, but it's more muscle memory when you're painting the same thing over. When you're doing a different painting, you want to like one of those flow states. You're kind of controlling your body. You're able to manipulate the paint, what you're doing with the brush, your motions with your arms, your hands, like what you're thinking about all at the same time. It's interesting. I don't really think about it whenever I'm in it either. It's just I'm there, but you're just focused on like what you're trying to do. And next thing you know, it's 2 or 3 hours later, which is awesome. I hate to say it, I smoke cigarettes, and I've cut back and cut back and cut back. And whenever I'm in a like that, I haven't smoked a cigarette in 3 hours.
Oh,
so
I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this.
Oh, you're good.
I was looking up your art.
Oh, it comes up on Google. That's good. It's good to know.
Is this your piece right here?
Yeah. All those are mine. So yeah, that's another one. I still have that piece. That's one of my. I used to do charcoal, like strictly charcoal pieces before I painted. And I was never going to paint. I was never wanting to be a painter. The only reason I started painting is because that's what they wanted at festivals. They wanted live painters, and I wanted to go to festivals. Yeah. So that was one of the last charcoal pieces I did in this kind of deity goddess state with the charcoal. And I love charcoal. Charcoal is my first love. And a lot of these in here, some of them are chalk pastel, which I was experimenting with color before I actually started to paint. This piece right here, the woman with the curly hair and the antlers.
Right here?
That was, yep. That was my very first painting ever.
This one?
Yeah.
That's phenomenal for your first painting ever.
I was looking at a reference photo, which is what I was taught, but then a lot of it, I fell back on my comic book, cartoony.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inspiration.
That's not you.
No. So I think that's a writer. I found out that's a writer.
So a lot of your stuff seems to be like goddess or femininely interpretations. Where did you get that from? Where did you get that understanding from?
It comes through ancient belief systems of like the Venus figure and a woman. A woman gives birth. She literally has a portal that she produces life from, and I think an ancient Homo sapiens they worship the woman. They really worship the woman. They couldn't have life without her, and the sacred feminine was a part of every ancient culture. You had Isis and Ra are the ones that created the earth. Isis is the Egyptians' Gaia. I mean, she's Mother Mary. You know what I'm saying? Like, she is the producer of life. She created Earth. Ra, the sun, and her made life on this planet. So you got that as sacred feminine. It's a very popular sacred feminine. Isis is one of the most common ancient woman that we can remember. That was like, she wasn't a real person, but she was a goddess. She was a god. She was up there with the rest of them. So that sacred feminine aspect of having to have the woman, who's a very powerful person. I mean, childbirth, I could not imagine going through childbirth. And then she's like, within a week, she's back at it, doing what she needs to be doing. Like, a man can go out and hunt a beast all day, but I don't know if a man could really handle childbirth, So I have to give it to the women. And I was raised by a single mom, so like, I really appreciate the strength of a woman and the capabilities that they're able to do. It's mind-boggling. Like, I'm 36, and like, there's still times I need to call my mom. Mm-hmm. My mom's like, she's on it. She knows what to do and how to get it done. And I really rely on her. And I think everybody needs to realize how amazing the woman and how powerful the woman really is. Maybe we realize how powerful she really was, mm-hmm. at some point. I don't know why that the woman's been so degraded throughout history, but at one point in time, they were worshipped very heavily. There's a lot of theory.
I think we're getting back into that. I think.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people are realizing that the importance of women, and I think a lot of us nowadays are realizing that, like, us dudes are kind of idiots in a lot of ways, and that we wouldn't be anything without our girls, our moms, our sisters, and stuff like that. So I think there was a time when men forgot and they were like, "Oh, we're men, we're strong," but it's like, right. Yeah. What really is strength,
Right.
The ability to hit someone in the throat is not really strength comparative to having a childbirth, raising.
I think that's where a lot of the balance comes from a woman having this emotional, they have a dominance in a lot of sense. Like, they're very powerful. The children are listening to them, like, but you have the man who's going out here and he's physically strong. The woman's like mentally strong. I've had many women come across my plate that they could say anything, and I'll drop what I'm doing and do whatever they tell me to, because they have me. I've many times I've been in love with a woman, so it's just, they're very important species around us. I'm glad they're here.
Who isn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it is insane that I was thinking this the other day, which is a very weird philosophical thought to have. But I was thinking how interesting and crazy it is that, like, we're designed the same but so different, like men and women. we have this one, like every species on planet Earth, except some that are like asexual or things like that, or like some like things that are living that are asexual or whatever. But I think it's fascinating that there's a designed thing between heterosexual animals that there's two different of the same species.
Yeah.
And they're designed to be attracted to each other to have another of the species.
Yeah. Physically, it's weird how we like in ways how we fit together, you know? There was old like origin stories where I forgot, I don't know if this was a Native American or a South American, but it was a man and a woman used to be conjoined together. And if you faced them together, a woman would maybe come up to about right here. Your arms went over her shoulders. Her arms went under yours. And they used to say that the beings were a four-legged, four-armed, two-headed being that was split in half. And your counterpart, your other half, is somewhere out there, and y'all would fit perfectly together. How physically we fit together is very interesting. The whole thing about the rib, like women have one more rib than a man or something, or we have one less rib. All that stuff's like it's really interesting physically how we are made, and how our brains are wired. Honestly, that's a huge aspect too. How we're able to get along, balance. It's all about that balance. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of relationships that argue, but you know, being able to balance. Dynamically,
definitely
work together, fit together.
That's another thing is like you're supposed to argue because you're different people, and you're like the reason you work is because you like. I'm a firm believer that. Now arguing the entire time, like every single
day,
not healthy. But I'm from believer that if you're not arguing with someone, you don't really care about them. You know?
That's my point of view is exactly.
Because a lot of arguments, I think, start from you speaking the truth. You know, if
something you're
affecting you,
yeah, you care about something enough that you want to verbalize how you feel or your opinion on it with your better half. So being able to talk it out. The argument comes with passion.
Definitely.
The raising of the voice, that's passion. That means something that you really feel and believe. So being able to work together, talk it out. I mean, we have arguing, but most of the time I don't think that it's an angry arguing. It's just a passionate argument. It's like, I'm not mad at this person. I'm just like, So I get like that. I'm passionate. I mean, you get me talking about UFOs or Bigfoot, I won't shut up.
Let's start with Bigfoot. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I told you.
Yes.
I think there's something out there that's Bigfoot. Definitely. I was just talking to the last guy on my podcast about, I think if Bigfoot exists, I mean, it makes sense. There's definitely a Bigfoot of the ocean, just something big and large and intelligent that we have no idea about. But I was more thinking of like the fact that like if there was something intelligent and walked like that, maybe they're staying away from us as a species rather than us find them.
Absolutely. I've heard many theories. I've seen since I was a kid. I've probably seen every Bigfoot documentary there is. Right. I as I've gotten older, there's been a couple of different thoughts that crossed my mind about what they are. But I saw a recent documentary that was really awesome. It's probably some of the best video evidence I've seen in like a really long time. But it was a guy's in the Canadian military. I forgot what part of Canada. But he's not in the military anymore, but he has survival tactics. He understands how to survive in nature by himself for long periods of time. And he believes in the Sasquatch. So he went out, I think he went 15 miles out into the forest of Canada. He says he's run across like 3 or 4 different packs of them. They don't live together, but they know that they're there. They obtain different parts of the mountain. They're nocturnal. They come out at night. They have day watchers that sit there in the day and watch while the group sleeps. So like watching this documentary is pretty interesting. They'd have to be super intelligent for us to have never found a body, to be that elusive and not be able to capture one, which I hope nobody ever tries to kill one if they see it. Don't try to capture it. I mean, if you're shooting anything, shoot a camera, shoot a camera, not a gun. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I used to live in Oregon too. I didn't live there for very long, but like when I was there, I really wanted to join one of those Bigfoot search teams and kind of just go out, because it's fascinated me my whole life. But whether they are some type of missing link, that's hard for me to believe, because I would think that we'd see some other forms sprouting up somewhere. I've also heard the theory that they are Johnny Quest. You know Johnny Quest cartoon back in the day?
Yeah.
So there was a really cool episode that, whoever wrote this episode, I thought was a pretty clever opinion or theory as to what happened. There was an alien spaceship that had crash landed, and their ship had broke. And at the time, we were still hunter-gatherers living in caves, very hairy. It might have even been Neanderthal times. I mean, Neanderthal lived during Homo sapiens a little bit. So the story was about a UFO that had crashed here during those times and wasn't able to fix their ship because Homo sapien hadn't evolved enough yet to have technology. So they've waited on this planet for thousands of years for humans to evolve enough to make technology that would fix their ship. But when they crash landed, they could turn themselves into the beings that lived on the planet, which looked like Bigfoot. All the species on the planet looked like Bigfoot. We were like Neanderthals, right? So the Sasquatch sightings that we would see would be like them breaking into like parts houses, stealing parts and wires and stuff like that to fix their ship. And so they got Johnny Quest's dad to go down there and help them fix the spaceship. And it was all just a big cover-up so they could fly away on their ship. I thought it was a really cool story about them being aliens and being able to disguise themselves as that. But there's no telling. They could be interdimensional beings for all we know and just somehow come in and out of our realm. I have no idea. But there's been too many people that have seen it. I can't just see you didn't see anything. Y'all saw something. Mm-hmm. You definitely saw something. I would love to see it.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, I would love to see it.
I feel like everyone would love to see a Bigfoot.
Man,
even if they don't believe in it.
Well, that's the main ones I want to see it. I just don't want to I don't want anybody out there with a gun that's like, oh shit, pow, pow. So when it was 2008, there was a hoax, and it was on CNNBC. It was like all over news broadcasts where these people claimed that they had shot a Bigfoot and killed it. And it looked real. I mean, it looked like a real Bigfoot. Took about 3 months before one of these Hollywood studios found out that one of their Sasquatch suits had went missing. And it was just like a body. It looked real. But they claimed they had shot a Bigfoot and killed it and took a picture of it, and they broadcast it all over the news. And half the world thought that we had really found Bigfoot, but it was a hoax. So, I don't know. It'd be cool to find one, but I'd hate to hurt it. I hate to just leave it be.
Do you believe in Men in Black?
Yeah, I just, whether there's been I've heard different stories about them. I've heard that they could possibly be aliens themselves. We all know the story of the movies where they're just government officials. I think any of those like theories could be possible. But the fact that we haven't seen them in 20 or 30 years makes me think that they might have been just some government thing where they were going around asking questions of people who thought they might have seen something, because there's definitely, whatever they are, they're here. They've been here. They've been around. I'm talking about like aliens, but I don't like to use the term aliens. We don't know if they're extraterrestrial or interdimensional, or if they're from our planet, period. Like, I think there's a lot of misconceptions to that about what they've told us about aliens and what's really going on. And I think, you know, I don't know if you ever, it's like ayahuasca. I don't know if you've done a lot of research about DMT, which is the ingredient in ayahuasca. It's one of those things where, yeah, it doesn't affect your judgment. It's not like taking acid or a mushroom and you're like, I'm tripping. I know I'm tripping. DMT doesn't affect your judgment. Like, literally everything changes right in front of your eyes. And you're like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And I've had experiences of entities coming in front of me, like trying to communicate, and I can't focus on them because they're just patterned out, moving around. Dimethyltryptamine has been around since the beginning. There's no telling how many ancient cultures have come in contact with it and have these alien experiences, these entities that come to them and try to talk to them. I mean, I've seen it. It's weird. I can't explain it. I know a lot of people that have similar experiences. So is it a hallucination? Hallucination is based on your brain. But if the person next to you is seeing the same thing at the same time, then something's up. So I've always thought about it as being like higher dimensions. We're in the third dimension. We're fourth dimensional beings. Like, we're aware of our surrounding, but we're in a 3D world. Who knows what a higher dimension looks like? I mean, we have a light, a certain light span that we see, that our corneas and our retinas and our lenses of our eyes see. Cats have a completely different light source and colors that they see. Like, when cats are staring at something in the corner that we don't see, they see something because they're seeing a higher dimension. So I don't know if that has a case of whenever we're seeing these entities or these aliens, but I think that you take dreaming, like a lot of abduction cases. I was asleep at night. I was asleep. I woke up, my body was paralyzed. I saw these entities in my room, or I saw a big bright light, and then I was sucked through it. Well, that sounds like a DMT experience. It sounds exactly like a DMT experience. Oh, wait, so you're sleeping at night. You were in REM sleep. Your pineal gland's dripping DMT right now, and you wake up. Your body's paralyzed. Well, when you smoke DMT, your body's paralyzed. Your eyes start watering and you yawn. Your brain's like, holy shit, I'm dreaming right now. So your body does this. It's connected. It's all connected. So when you're sleeping at night and you're dreaming, your body's paralyzed. It's because your DMT is dripping out of your pineal gland. But when you smoke DMT, your brain's like, holy shit, I should be asleep right now. So you're just kind of like, whoa. And then see all this crazy stuff. So I think that these people who have these abduction cases at night are having DMT experiences and don't realize that it's a DMT experience. The only thing that they can think of is, I saw these entities come into my bedroom and I got pulled through a light. It's weird. It's spacey. It's out of this world. I can see how it was related to that. But when it comes down to like flying saucers, I don't think that's interdimensional. I mean, I don't think an alien needs a spaceship to fly around if he's coming from a higher dimension. I think they can just kind of come here somehow. They have their way. Flying saucers, it's hard for me to believe that an alien from two light years away in another galaxy flew here in a spaceship. We have problems trying to fly to Mars with our bodies growing old, right? We have to do something to keep our bodies young until we get there. Why are they flying from a whole other place unless they're like time jumping or space jumping or something to come here? Now, my theory is maybe aliens were here the whole time. Maybe they're subterranean. Maybe we don't see them. I don't know what's going on, but I think that the whole UFO conspiracy was, we found a UFO in the ground from thousands of years ago. And you can go back and look at your Hindu culture, your Chinese culture, a lot of these ancient cultures who, like the Sumerian, I mean, the oldest recorded history we've ever uncovered, like written history, not the cave drawings, but like recorded history, There's the Sumerian tablets. They talk about the Anunnaki coming here from the 12th planet to mine for gold. Very detailed. This is their origin story. You have the first emperor of China. Their origin story is the first emperor of China came here in the belly of a fire-breathing dragon. He started the first empire, ruled for 100 years, and then the dragon came back and picked him up and they flew away. So it's like, these UFOs like Eric Von Daniken's talking about, like these ancient astronauts, were these real? Were they already here on this planet? Were they an advanced species living on this planet that was able to fly around these flying saucers? And we have airplanes. During World War II, you had to go down there and like, we were island hopping, right? During World War II, at the end of it, we were land on islands that these natives had never seen another person before. And we were landing on their islands in airplanes. They thought they were gods. You can go to this island today and they have erected airplanes because they thought that that was their god. Now, I can see how that had to happen thousands of years ago. Maybe there was an advanced species living on this planet, flying around. We had these hunter-gatherers, these lower species of Homo sapiens that are seeing this and not knowing what it is. Something happens. It gets buried in the dirt, crash lands. And then you have this whole, these UFO conspiracies. So like, where does these UFOs come from? I think our government found it, duplicated the technology, and the UFOs that we're seeing now are just government ships. That's what I'm thinking.
Does DMT, sorry, I'm like not changing. I was just taking that hat off in my head. But this is the question I have for you. Do you think that, did DMT have any effect on certain paintings of yours?
Oh, yeah.
Because you were talking about it back then, and I wanted to ask you, but I didn't want to stop you because you were talking about some good shit. So I was just wondering, did DMT have an effect on certain paintings, and what effect did it have and things like that?
Definitely did, man. It, you know, I'm like one of those people, I don't want to like pro it or con it or anything, but like DMT changed my life. It was the most profound experience that I think I've ever had. And especially my first few times of actually getting off on it, it was all out of pure curiosity, trying to understand, and also realizing that a lot of ancient cultures had been messing with it as well. So I kind of wanted to see what it was all about. And man, it took me for a whirlwind. I was trying to depict the patterns I was seeing, the entities I was seeing. Like, I don't know if you can see, I got this piece right over here. It's got a lot of triangle pattern work in it and stuff. And like, that's all I saw first time I ever got off. Everything turned triangle pattern. I mean, my friends turned into geometric patterns with heads that I couldn't understand what they were saying. I mean, my brain was overloaded. I didn't know what to think. And coming out of that, yeah, I really wanted to try to depict what I had seen. And yeah, it's definitely, it comes out in almost every painting in some form or fashion. Like it's had a huge effect on me. And it's one of those things, I'm scared to death of it. I'm scared to death of it. I don't think that doing it to just do it is the right thing to do. I think it's definitely a sacrament for any ancient culture that has been messing with it. They didn't just do it to do it. And we come into the festival scene, there's a lot of kids that are just smoking it like cigarettes, joints. And I don't think that's the best thing to do. I think you need to really appreciate and respect your psychedelics. It's like playing Russian roulette. You're playing with your brain. You know, you open that door, you can't shut it anymore. Once you've seen that, you can't unsee it. You don't want to be the crazy person. You know what I'm saying? Not that they're crazy. They've just seen stuff that they can't explain. And I can stand by them and say that I've seen a lot of weird stuff too, and I can't explain it. But, you know, don't fall off the deep end with it. because I think you can really lose touch with reality about what's going on. We live in this world around us for a reason. You know, these things like DMT is in our heads, produced naturally. It's in every living organism. It's the one chemical that everything has in common. Everything. So that's cool. It's something I feel like, well, we should really try to understand it and appreciate what it is and what it's doing. And I think we're at very early stages of trying to figure out what's going on. But I also think that it's highly illegal for a reason. And not that it's because it's unknown about. I think that it's illegal because they know exactly what it does. And they don't want everybody doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For like what reason? I don't know. I have my own theories. I can go down rabbit holes all day, but yeah. It's also for me who I think that I'm somewhat not a rookie, I guess. I still feel like a rookie sometimes when I do it, and it's a really interesting thing. I feel like it's one of those things you need to be careful and understand that, like, in our reality and world, we have a balance of good and bad. We have to have a balance. You're gonna have that there too. Whatever dimension you go into, whatever that is, there has to be a balance there too.
Yeah, it fascinates me the fact that a drug like alcohol that kills more people in the world than any other drug just gets a pass. And like now marijuana is starting to be like, they're starting to pull away, which is good. You know, that's the first one that's got it. You know, that shouldn't have never been illegal. You know, they got afraid of it. William Henry Hearst, hemp was going to be the next thing that they created paper with. They
had a lot of political reasons as to why it wasn't.
Facts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's I'm not a drinker. Yeah, I've had times. I went to college. I went to the bars. Alcohol, I get nothing good from it. I get nothing done when I'm doing it, and I feel like shit the next day. I get nothing done. I'd be like one of those people. I'd rather eat a couple hits of acid than try to drink a 6-pack of beer. I'm going to be able to function better. Sounds crazy, but I can't do it. Alcohol to me is one of those things where it's definitely an inhibitor. It's a depressant. It will keep you from doing shit. And I can't say that pot won't. I mean, pot will make you lazy too. But drinking alcohol, it'll mess with your motor functions. You can't drive. You can't walk. You can't speak. Can't pick up on certain things like communicating with people. You might not pick up on the fact that they don't want to talk to you. You're over here like, blah, blah, blah. So certain aspects about that of what it does to you psychologically is very interesting for the fact that they allow it. You know, let's put a bar downtown. Let's put a liquor store everywhere. You can buy beer any time of the day, get it, but we have rules. Can't drive. Well, you put the bar downtown. I have to go downtown. Well, that's the problem. You got to figure out how to get home. The rules and regulations. Like, if there wasn't bars downtown, they wouldn't have people to pull over for DUIs. Like, there's certain reasons these things are in place, and it's not for our benefit. It's to make money. And I hate to say it, but alcohol is one of those things where it's not for the better of the human culture. It's definitely got its part in history. Definitely parts of where it's been beneficial. Hell, I could see a husky bringing in a barrel of whiskey to a person that's buried in the snow. It's going to keep them warm. It's got enough nutrients in it as food. I understand survival with it. I understand certain things. I also understand altering our state of consciousness as a human. Like, that's also why we drink it. But the overall effects, oh man, the addiction, it's all bad. And like I sit here and I smoke weed every day. So I'm also a hypocrite saying that stuff. But I don't know. I feel like pot has better outcome. I think I just read that the people who drink more, like usually during the pandemic, had switched over to smoking weed more than they have started drinking. So I thought that was cool. Like I said, I'm from Georgia. My family grew up in the Bible Belt. They were religious. And I have some relatives that, you know, when I was 18, 19 years old, I dare not tell anybody I was smoking pot because of what they might think of me. It's my family. And here it is now, pot's legal in half the United States and medicinally legal in certain states it's not completely legal yet, right? So I had my cousin hit me up and he was like, so like my mom and dad are smoking weed now. And I'm like, what? Like they're super religious and I would never thought that they would ever do anything like that. I'm like, this is amazing because like they're trying to, I think it was for anxiety. It was for a certain reason. Like they were going to the dispensary to get it for medicinal reasons. And I think that's great. Like I don't smoke it medicinally. I do, but I smoke it more. I smoke it all day sometimes. So if I had it the way it was medicinally smoked, I'd probably not smoke until 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I can get my work done during the day, get off, relax, smoke a joint. Then I get tired and you want to go to bed. Works out perfectly. You smoke a joint when you first wake up, foggy headed for the rest of the day. It might actually inhibit you from getting stuff done. So that's the pros and cons with any drug, I guess. So
and CBD too. CBD has a lot of positive effects on it. I take these little Zen CBD capsules every day for my anxiety. It's
amazing.
Things ever, yeah.
You know, whenever they started really doing the research, I remember seeing the old man who had Parkinson's or had some kind of like the shaking disease, and he was an ex-cop. He'd probably been retired for 30, 40 years, but he had a disorder, and they were giving him CBD tincture, and within 30 seconds, his shaking stopped. And for somebody to have grown up their entire life and be told that this stuff's bad for you, to lock people up for it, and he probably did that to numerous people. And then it's the one thing that's actually saving his life now.
Irony.
You know? Yeah. It's crazy. I just hate that we have, and I think that about all natural plants. I mean, peyote, San Pedro, psilocybin, you know, pot, all these different, these things are there for a reason. They've been worshipped for thousands of years for a particular reason. And now we're in a state of science where we can actually research this stuff. I think we should really be taking advantage of that because they haven't stopped doing it in their cultures. And we're over here trying to figure out why they're doing it in their culture. Well, let's figure it out. Let's really try to understand what's going on scientifically. They believe in it. It's faith. It's faith to them. Mm-hmm. They've been doing it there for thousands of years. They believe in it.
It's back to that. It's back to that. What I said earlier about we think that because we have iPhones that we're better than other humans. You know, that humans lived before, more advanced or smarter. But realistically,
we're
more technologically
advanced. Have you ever
smarter?
There's a documentary called The Botany of Desire. It was a book, but they made a documentary about it. It's really interesting because the guy is a scientist. I don't know what he studies particularly, but it was his day off. And this is like his little like journal that he's writing. He's like, I was out in my garden. I was watering the plants and fertilizing them and all this stuff. He's like, I got to noticing all these bees flying around. They're like pollinating and doing everything for the plants. And he was like, these plants don't do anything. They literally just sit in the dirt. They don't move. They make their own food. The bees pollinate for them. He's like, the bees are just like slaves to the plants. While he's talking all this, he's got his like water pitcher there watering them. And he's like, I'm watering the plants. I'm fertilizing them. He's like, I'm a slave too. He's like, we're doing all this stuff for these plants. Plants are the only thing that defy gravity. They grow straight up. Everything else has to lay down. I mean, they get so tall at some point that their branches fall down, but they're always growing up, you know, reaching for the sky. Very interesting. they're just as they are on the top, they are at the bottom. All the roots connect. And then some of them produce these chemicals that make us question our reality. When we think, like you said, we're the most advanced species on this planet. Plants have been here surviving way longer than we've ever been here. And another interesting fact is like mycelium, like mushrooms. Scientists are baffled. They're like, this is a very alien thing to our planet. It doesn't seem like it belongs here. It literally takes up the second top layer of soil over the entire planet. It's kind of like a brain connection. Everything grows through it. All the trees, all the plants grow through the mycelium. And they all can communicate. It's really interesting. They can literally communicate across the world. Wherever the mycelium is growing, there's a brain circuitry, and they can communicate. So like you think about when we cut roads into the ground, we're cutting off signals from that. So studying these plants and fungus, yeah, like this super, super advanced to the fact that like they don't have to do anything. I mean, we have plants in our house, watering our plants. We want it to look pretty, fresh air, like all the qualities of a plant, but it just sits there. And it's like a cat, right? We're cleaning the cat litter box out because we want to, I guess. You know, we want a cat. We want this plant. So we'll do whatever we can to make this plant survive and live. So like the Botany of Desire was really cool little thing to watch or read, because it really shows you your enslavement to plants. But we don't really think about it at all.
No, I've never once thought about being a slave to a plant until you just said that. We do. Like, we want them to look pretty. We water them. Mm-hmm. And also, like, when you go into, like, the wilderness and the forest, you can almost feel, like, that the trees are alive and, like, they're almost conscious. Like, you can feel the tree's consciousness, which is fascinating because you don't think of, like, plants as having, like, a soul. But, like, in a sense, like, you could feel, like, a tree, like, they've, like, aged. You can feel, like, them having some presence, which is just fascinating because it's, like, it, like, makes you reevaluate how you evaluate other things relative to yourself, you know?
Yeah, you become a tree hugger. I remember when I first became a tree hugger and understood what it really meant. Like you can pick on hippies all day, like the tree huggers and the vegans and blah, 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 blah. But no, they got it. Like I remember the first time I tried acid, I remember I was planting, I don't know if it was a pot seed I found in my weed, but I had a seed and I was planting it. I was sitting next to a baby, like a little baby tree that was on its way to being rubbing the trunk. I remember going and hugging this other tree, and the connection that you feel, I've never lost that connection after that. It's to a plant and a tree are the most majestic things ever. And having a light shine on it at night, you can sit there, that's a viewing experience right there. You can just sit there and look at a tree all night with a light on it.
Yeah. So we are almost 2 hours into this. Is there any last topic that you would like to get to?
Covered aliens, Bigfoot, art. We've done pretty good.
Good. I think I have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
So is there any big painting that you're working on right now?
Not really. This is what I started last night. It's not very big. It's like 18 by 24. And it's a figure abstract. Nice. Thanks. I'm a figure artist, but I overthink a lot. And the abstract allows me not to overthink so much. But I still get to paint my figure, which is like, that's the fun part to me. That's what I enjoy most, is the painting a figure and the shadows and the highlights and getting the perspective right and all that good stuff. But like the abstract, like dealing with something like that and trying to put like a realistic background, oh man, I mean, it's overwhelming. You might not know how to do it. You might not have done it correctly. You might have to paint over some part. So just being able to just like around the figure so much like easier on my brain. I don't have to like overthink it. It's so much nicer. But yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. We gotta have any like larger scale pieces. I have a witch that I've been working on. I guess I can show you. I haven't painted on it in probably 6 months, but it's gonna be.
Whoa. That's wild.
Yeah, it's got a lot of symbology in it. And
yeah.
Like, I want to. It's like an educational thing. Like, symbology is a big thing that gets misinterpreted. Like, let's see, thinking about, so like the devil's pitchfork. People look at a pitchfork and immediately think of the devil or Satan. But like Poseidon had it thousands of years before. So symbology. I remember in college learning about Moses and the depictions of Moses on cathedrals and in certain books back in the day, like certain Bibles and stories. The translation for the halo was misinterpreted. So for a couple hundred years, Moses was depicted with horns coming out of his head instead of a halo because the word was misinterpreted. That's a huge misinterpretation. So witnessing that in art history class and realizing like, oh, we're human, we make mistakes. Symbology is a huge thing. So I put a lot of symbology in that to let people question it. Like it's the witch, she's standing over a pentagram. Was the pentagram like a devil symbol or is it a pagan symbol? What does it really mean? So my research of the pentagram is the 4 seasons. Or you have, it was 4 seasons and yourself. Or the, I actually have to go back and look at that. But it was a really cool explanation as to the pagan symbol of it and why it was turned upside down. It's not that it's turned upside down. It's that point is pointing at the person. And then the other 4 are the 4 seasons. So I was like, whoa, okay, that's why the interpretation of being upside down is bad because that's what they thought. I see where the devil goat comes out of that, you know, how the drawing is. So symbology is one of those things I really like to play around with to kind of have people question it and understand it better in a sense because it can be very misleading sometimes.
Definitely. Well, that's a good way to end it. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me, man. It was awesome talking.
It was really fun talking to you. You're more than welcome to come on anytime again. Hopefully after COVID and everything, maybe we'll see where the show goes and maybe I have a studio you can come visit. And
where are you? You're in Oregon? What part of Oregon?
So right outside of Portland.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I used to trim and Tigard. Yeah, I lived in Portland for a little bit. Yeah, it's fun. I'll definitely have to come visit, man.
Definitely, bro.
Oh, yeah.
So thanks for coming on. I think I'm going to post it Tuesday. So I usually do Tuesday and Friday. So, I mean, Tuesday at most Friday. But this was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
and,
definitely,
man.
man.
Do it again.
Definitely.
All right, buddy.
See ya.
Yeah, I'll see you again soon.